Hello and welcome to A Guardian Talks, episode 6. Just me today. So, something I wanted to talk about today was accountability, specifically in its positioning within the process of awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, accountability, atonement, forgiveness, release, move forward. So roughly that. I mean, myself and Brother Lee, for example, have had many a discussion on the subtleties and nuances of that particular process, but that is a rough estimation of what is occurring, especially in conjunction with the process of sacral release. It's very keyed into that, and how that release manifests itself, and how it's required to manifest itself in order to release in the day-to-day actions and activities, words, thoughts of the individual undergoing it, going through it. So, accountability in particular, there's a lot of call at the moment for accountability. Accountability, especially for the larger aspects of society, politicians, financiers, world leaders, corporations. There is an increasing demand for the accountability of their actions and the impacts that they've had on the world and the people who exist within it, us. But then there's accountability on the individual level. We have to trust that accountability on that large level, that scale. We have to trust the universe and have faith that the universe will, or the divine will, mete out the justice that's required. And it will be suitable for that being, each in their turn, in a way that no human mind could probably even fathom, conceive of, conjecture. In ways that would be so outside of the box, it would be like a twist in a movie. I didn't see that coming, but it's perfect. Better than any justice I was thinking about meting out to them. So that releases us of any kind of compulsion or pressing desire to somehow assist in the bringing about of accountability on that scale for these kinds of people. It's being dealt with. What we have to do is take accountability for ourselves, for our own actions, for our own deeds, for the choices we make that were lesser than honourable, virtuous, and integral, with integrity. Which is obvious for some things. For example, a thief steals something. It's an obvious thing that when we apply the process of awareness, I have stolen. But the awareness of what that actually means, morally, ethically, metaphysically, as an act against his fellow brothers and sisters. Acknowledgement that is the case. Acceptance that it should be that way, and that what he did was misguided, unwise, and out of alignment with a higher state of honor and virtue and integrity. So then he takes account for it. For an example, we could say he returns the object and admits that he stole. Having returned the object, but also then making it clear that he wishes to atone for the action. In this instance, I imagine the person who the property is restored to would simply say, thank you for the offer of further atonement. I am just happy that you've returned it and admitted it was you and are willing to make atonement. That's enough. In most cases, that'll actually be where it ends. In some cases, atonement is required. And there's a whole other debate to be had about the wisdom of meting out of atonement, the wisdom of knowing what is the best way to atone for any particular thing, and how to wisely place that. And then the forgiveness of the self, without resentment, without hard feeling, without guilt, shame. The shame has already been experienced in the acknowledgement and the accountability, and then in the seeking of atonement. So now we can look at that event and see it for what it was: an error in judgment, a misalignment. And sometimes they can even be very well intended. Oftentimes they are. The intention as well, the driving force behind it, sees an act as a stepping stone towards a greater good for not just themselves but for others. We often include the benefit to others in the driving force, the justifications and the excuses for our actions. I think it's a thing that's shared. Well, if they share in the reward, and they knew that they were going to share in the reward, if I fail or fall, maybe they will share in the failure, or they will be easier on me. But anyway, again, debates can be had about all the different scenarios this stuff comes up in. But to then forgive oneself without any resentment and with gratitude. That's the final step, gratitude. Because once you forgive yourself, you can be grateful for the fact that you've already gone through that now, and you've learned from it, and you are now wiser for it. And that's something that can only be a thing worth being grateful for. It's now made you a wiser person. And now you can move forward, knowing that that error will never be made again. So therefore your path should now, in theory, be that much more frictionless, that much more effortless. You should be able to rise in vibration, and the universe will then start to move into alignment with that higher vibration, and things will move forward. But it requires that accountability. I'll give an example for myself, because it's only fair. Last year, or just over a year to today, I borrowed £10,000 off a brother, and I won't say his name, I'll keep him anonymous. And I had all these knowings at the time. I had a driving force behind me, because I'd made some significant leaps in consciousness and perception, things I was able to now conceive. So I was on what in poker you could call I was on tilt, and I thought I had an answer that could bring much benefit to many people, myself included. I ended up giving away maybe at least 3,000 of it. I ended up putting about 2,000, no, maybe 3,000 up my nose, and the rest was literally whittled away because I dawdled in Denmark instead of coming straight to the Far East, where the cost of living is infinitesimally smaller compared to the cost of living in a wealthy country like Denmark. So literally procrastination cost. Procrastination ended up costing a lot of money in the end, as it turned out. And by the time I did actually get off my ass and come to Asia, it was almost all but gone. But I still had the driver, and I still had the belief that I had created enough momentum, built up enough, made enough progress, done enough of the homework, done enough of the paperwork, lined up enough ducks in a row that this would still succeed. And then, of course, I came to Cambodia, and then I was very quickly schooled in, I say schooled, I was very quickly shown and made aware of the misalignment and the misdirection of my drive. And it was made perfectly clear as well that and it was acknowledged that the intent of my drive was pure. And actually on a level of consciousness of high virtue, honor and integrity. But only on that level of consciousness. And it was only 2 or 3 steps of consciousness up from that it became very clear that it was a selfish driving force, ultimately. And the layers of excuses which I had coated on top of that to, in essence, to convince myself that I was right, that I had the right formula, that I'd figured out a strategy, a methodology that would that would come to fulfillment, and I could show to everyone and say, there you go, see? I knew it. I was right. Could be done this way. And now everybody gets the benefit. Because that is always the actual genuine drive in there. Part of the selfishness that is present in wanting to provide and give abundance and prosperity to those around you care about is so that you can selfishly enjoy and share in their pleasure and their happiness. You know, there is that selfish feedback system, and there is a truth in the saying that in order to be selfless, one must first learn how to become selfish in a pure way. And I wasn't doing that. The intent was there, that was the aim, but I missed the target. And I could at the time turn around and try to justify that I burnt through all of that money in the name of a good cause, and that I learned many, many things and actually helped many, many, many people, assisted many, many people in lots of strange and wondrous ways. I could tell you some stories that would be fascinating, that would make you laugh and make you cry, that wouldn't have been able to happen if I hadn't have had access to those resources. But those would be justifications. Those would be excuses and an attempt to somehow alleviate the dishonor and the loss of integrity and the fact that I took a less virtuous path, deceiving myself that I wasn't. And so, and you know, obviously the thought of that passed through my mind, to do all of that. But I very quickly, once I got my schooling, I very quickly realized the folly of that. several months later, after coming back to Cambodia, I still hadn't apologized to this brother. I hadn't. And when it got brought up, the moment it got brought up, I said to him that the reason you haven't heard me say I'm sorry or apologize for it is because I am now in a position where I am so aware of what I did, so aware of how off target I was, that a simple verbal spoken apology, it would be, to my mind, pitiful. Maybe not pitiful, but it would be far less than what would be required to even begin atoning. The apology has to be something more than a spoken one in this instance, especially now knowing for myself, looking from where I am at now to where I was then, and then the cascades of consequences from there to here. Now I look back at it and, oh wow, that's the gravity of the situation. Yes, I learned many lessons. Yes, I assisted many people, but I did not have the right to do that using the energy of a brother who gave me that energy with the intent that I would use it in the most efficient, most virtuous, most honorable way, with the highest integrity, which would have meant becoming, using it to not push, but to spread the awareness of GPMS and to engage with the metaphysical and energy work that is going on across the surface of the planet. I had it in my head that I was going to house people in bamboo houses and create whole industries of bamboo, surrounded by bamboo. I was going to save the people with bamboo. Yeah. So I am still in the process of atoning for that. I have not been able to figure out how to atone for it. That doesn't matter. I can, hand on heart, say I am in a state of atonement for that thing with that brother. And the day will come when atonement will have either been reached, or the obvious way in which to atone will present itself and become self-evident, and I will immediately do that thing. And that will be, and in that moment will be the correct time to say my apologies, with the completion of the act of atonement. And I understand for people thinking about now maybe possibly the things that they have done, that they have justified to themselves or attempted to justify to themselves, that they have deceived themselves about, all with the best intents, probably sometimes. Facing the idea of acknowledging it and taking account for it, that act of taking account for it and asking to make atonement, makes people feel uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable thing to do, especially if it's if you're in the very low vibrational consciousness state. Chances are the things that require atonement might be pretty heavy, and the shame and guilt surrounding it might be heavy if you're still in that place where you have not yet mastered the process of release, using shame as an immediate springboard to release rather than sitting in it for a long time before you fall into a state of despair, and then you are forced to either get out of it or transition. So, and yes, it is. I get it. I've been there. It does feel uncomfortable. But that discomfort isn't from them, it's from you. You're already feeling the discomfort that you're going to feel when you make account and ask for atonement, ask to make atonement. You just haven't done those things yet. In your mind you have, and you're already suffering because of the feelings of shame, guilt. So you're already in that place. The only way to free yourself from that place is to go finish the process, actually engage with the person, man or woman, to whom your particular instance is connected with, and say it, account for it. Look, I see this now. I'm in a place now where I can look back at what I did and I see exactly for what it is. And you were right. You were right. And I did that, this, that, and that because I was in that place thinking like that. It was foolish, but I see that foolishness now. I apologize, and if there's a way I can atone for it, please work it out with me now so I can do that. And I promise you the relief after that, you'll feel after that. You'll kick yourself and you'll think, why did I put this off? Why did I put this off? Because now I'm free to make amends, to make, because at the end of the day, once you open up that discussion, the person's not going to turn around and make the atonement something that is impossible, inachievable. The first thing they're going to do is be grateful for the fact that you have seen it and acknowledged it. Yeah, I've lost count of the amount of times when I've seen that happen. I've seen the look on someone's face and I felt the energy coming from them when they see somebody acknowledge and take account for something, which shows they have become wiser and grown and expanded in their consciousness, so that what they did, the self-awareness now allows them to see what they did. And in that acknowledgement, the person is like, I've seen it on the looks on their faces. They're like, that alone is powerful. That alone, often, I said it before, I'll say it again, that often alone can be enough of an atonement. Because I guess it's in the receiver of that, it's a sense of reharmonizing and rebalancing, of reordering of reality into an aspect that is now closer aligned with truth. And how good a reward is that? How much more atonement, how much more reward can atonement bring than just having that and experiencing that slice and that moment of the universe becoming more harmonized and more balanced, and therefore, by definition and de facto, benefiting everyone equally and evenly. Have the courage, brothers and sisters. Have the courage to take account for those things which need to be accounted for, and release all of the things which either can't be accounted for, are not for yours to account for, or are almost physically, for whatever reason, it would be extremely difficult for you to make that process with the other person. If it's with another person, if it's just with yourself, bring it to yourself then, so then it's just with yourself and your understanding of your awareness, that you acknowledge it and attempt to go through that process on your own. It can be done. It's easier if it's with another person, and especially if it's the accountability for something that was done to that person, because the feedback loop of that is just, it amplifies that process. But it's not impossible to do on your own. This process needs to be done now, brothers and sisters, and you need to see it and encourage it in others as well. Spread the message of this. We need to get over our shame, and we need to get over our guilt. We need to get over ourselves so that we can become fully whole within ourselves. Yeah. That's one of the greatest things you can do for GPMS, because when you do that, you are in essence stepping into and solidifying the kind of being that exists in this world, that already exists. It's just waiting for us to emerge into it by becoming of it in frequency and likeness. You can't take baggage into this. You can't take baggage into this. You have to step into this lightly, light as a feather, free of all guilt, shame, because you have taken account for everything up to that point, understood why it occurred, taken tally of the lessons learned from it, and made atonement where atonement was required, and now you are released from it. You are now free to step off the wheel of karma. You are now free to be the fullness of who you are as a being. Does that not sound good? All you got to do is kind of go to the headmaster's office within yourself for a little bit. You remember how that was? Getting made to stand out in the hall, go to the headmaster's office. Yeah. It's that feeling, but it's a childish feeling. And we are stepping into a world that requires us to be childlike, not childish. And to have the wisdom and the understanding to know that one of the biggest keys to our freedom and our release is our own accountability for our own actions. But it's one of the hardest ones. I know. It's difficult. I'm with you. So, I'd like to hear from people who watch this, if they watch it this far, what they think. What are your versions of what I've talked about here today? Do you have versions of what I've talked about? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you have questions? Would you like me to elaborate on certain things? I respond best to questions, and I'm more than happy to, I want this to be an open discussion and an open forum. And I'd love to hear examples of other people's moments of realization and courage that allowed them to take account, make atonement, and then release, forgive and release. And I'd like to hear, how their story, your story. So please reach out to me, either in comments, go to GPMS World, and email GPMS World, ask for me. Go to my X account, which I believe is @SableWolf. So, in fact, on this video, I'm going to put a link to my X account in the description below. So yes, feel free to reach out to me on there as well. Let's open the discussion. So, lesson for today. The subject of today's Guardian Talks, accountability, the importance of it, and the necessity it plays in the unfolding of events moving forward, and how to unfold those events in a way that eventually, inevitably, emerges GPMS World. So thank you for watching up to now, if you have, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. It's been a pleasure, as always. And I'll speak to you soon. Watch this space. Love, light, and gratitude.